Hello guys, welcome to the session. So from this session onwards, we are going to start our journey in PowerShell. So let's look into the topics which we are going to cover in this session. So in this session, we will start our journey with understanding the shell, what is shell is. Then once we understand the shell, we will proceed further and look into what is PowerShell. Why do we need PowerShell? What are the features of PowerShell? Then we will look into what are the things you can connect with PowerShell to automate them. Once you come to know about all those things, then we will proceed further. I will introduce the ways by which you can use the PowerShell, that is command line interface, and integrated scripting environment, that is ISE. Once we understand the ways to use PowerShell, we will proceed further and get our hands dirty with some of the commonly used commandlets, so that you can get some idea about PowerShell environment. By this time you are comfortable with PowerShell environment and you must be curious about what this PowerShell commandlets is. So we will discuss this in the next topic of this session, where we will discuss about what is PowerShell commandlets. So in this aspect, we will discuss about some of the points to remember about PowerShell commandlets. And at last, we will discuss about PowerShell ecosystem. So guys, prior to going into the detail of these topics, one thing I wanted to tell you regarding this session is that this session covers almost 60% of theory and 40% of practical. It is because that I want that you should learn about the PowerShell in a more logical manner, so that it would be easy for you to proceed further with the PowerShell course. And once you finish this course, you can apply these knowledge in a more logical manner. So let's start our discussion. So what is shell is? So basically, shell is a command prompt at which you enter commands. Historically, the term shell describes the piece of software that sits over an operating system's core functionality. With the help of this piece of software, that lets you access the functionality provided by the operating system. To make you better understand, I will open a command prompt from Windows operating system and demo you. So here I have opened a Windows command prompt. With the help of this command prompt, you can interact with the operating system. For example, if you write dir, then it will list all the directory, what are the directory available within that location, within users amranjan 4 location. So it listed all the directories and the files. So this is one of the example of shell. So with this demo, it has given us a question, or say another topic to discuss, that is, why do we need PowerShell if this shell is already available? That is our third topic. We will discuss about what is PowerShell next, but first we will understand that why we need PowerShell if already Windows command prompt is available. So to answer your question, I will start with an example so that you will better understand that why we need PowerShell, or say what is the benefit of using PowerShell. So guys, to make you a point, why do we need PowerShell? We are into Windows Server 2012 R2. So suppose that if we want to add a user into this server, so what we need to do? We need to come to this server and search for users, and here we will get an option to create an user. So click on that. So here you will get an option to add a user account, and you need to fill this form to create an user. So guys, if it is a single user, we don't have any problem. But suppose if it is an enterprise server and we have more than thousands, so you can feel that it is very drudgery task to create thousands users. So with command prompt, it is not possible to automate such kind of a scenario where we need to do the repetitive task. So that's the reason Microsoft introduced Windows PowerShell, which will help us to automate the repetitive task. This example is one of the example, and this is just not limited to user creation. In further course, we will look into various capabilities of PowerShell, which you will find very interesting and very powerful. So now moving further, so now you have little idea about what is PowerShell. So in the early example, I have told you that command prompt doesn't design to work with Windows. So that means you can't automate any of the Windows based administrative tasks. So to cope up with this problem, Microsoft completely redesigned everything with .NET framework. Along with that, they have also introduced the Windows PowerShell, which is more powerful and more robust to do the automation for Windows system. So now moving further, we will discuss about features of PowerShell. PowerShell has various features, but some of the major one is it supports traditional shell features like piping. It has the capability to access the hardware in the environment. As I already mentioned that it has built-in integration with .NET, and moreover it has programming capability like it supports for variables, objects, collection, arrays and hash tables. This we are going to see in the further course. Along with that, we can also use PowerShell to administer Azure resources, AWS resources, and we can also administer Office 365. So let's look into one of the interesting diagram of PowerShell. So here you will see that PowerShell has the capability to connect any of the environment like its SQL Server, SharePoint, Active Directory, IIS, Azure, Exchange Server, file system. This is not limited to this diagram. It has also capability to connect with AWS as well and also with Office 365. So you can imagine how powerful it is. So that means if you are learning one tool, you can easily manage any of the listed environments. So now let's move further and we will look into how many ways we can use PowerShell. We can use PowerShell by two ways. The first way is that command line interpreter, which I will show you right now, and we will also work with PowerShell with the help of IAC, that is integrated scripting editor, that I will show you as well. So let's look into that. So this is the first glimpse of command line interpreter or say command line interface of PowerShell. So to work with PowerShell, either you can use this command prompt or say this CLI, so you can use it to execute the command like dir, so it will list all the directory. This CLI is limited to execute the single line commandlets. Commandlets we will discuss further in this session. What is commandlets? So now you understand that command line interface, that is CLI. So you must wondering, how do I write a program within PowerShell? So in that scenario, here we will use the second way by which we can use the PowerShell, that is the integrated script editor. So let me open that integrated script editor. To open the PowerShell ISE, what you need to do, you need to come here and click on Windows, this Windows keys, and here you need to type PowerShell. Then you will get an option PowerShell ISE. This one is for Windows PowerShell command prompt, that is CLI, and if you will click on it, this will open Windows PowerShell ISE. You can right click and run as administrator, so that it will provide the access as an administrator and you can execute the script. For execution of the script, I have a detailed topic which we will discuss further in the course. So this is the ISE. If you want to write any script, click on new. You just need to click on new, and here you can write the script, whatever the script which you want to write. So I will discuss that, what are the construct, what are the syntax, what are the literals which we will use to write the script in the further session of the course. For a time being, just understand that we will use ISE to write the script, that is integrated script editor. The benefit of ISE is that you can run the script or you can also run the commandlet from here as well. For example, dir. Now moving further, now we understand that both the ways how we can use PowerShell. Now we will proceed further and we will play with PowerShell. So here we will do some exercises. So let's look into the exercises. First exercise we will perform that, check the version of PowerShell, which version we are using, and we will also look into how to get the execution policy information. Then we will also look into how to set the execution policy. Then we will perform enabling a script, and then afterwards we will look into how to check the alias provider. And exercise 6 we will discuss about modules, what are modules, and we will also look into how to download those modules. So to play with this exercise, let's open Windows PowerShell CLI. So you search for Windows PowerShell and here you will get an option. This one is the Windows PowerShell CLI. So you need to right click and run as administrator. So now we are into PowerShell CLI, command line interpreter or say command line interface. So here, to know that which version we are using, what we need to do, we need to use the environment variable, that is ps version table dot ps version. Now enter. So here it is showing me the major version is 4. So this is on VM it is showing, which is using Windows Server 2012. So let's check into the host machine. What is the version of host machine? PowerShell. So this is my host machine PowerShell environment. So let's check what is the version it has. Yes, version table dot ps version. Enter. So it is major version is 5 and build is this one and revision is 1805. So this is the way you can know about which PowerShell version is running in your machine. So moving further to our exercise 2, that is getting the execution policy. So let's do in our host machine Windows PowerShell only. So to do that, you need to write get execution policy. So it is showing me remote signed. So here I wanted to give you some information about execution policy details. So further, whenever you are executing any script, it will be really helpful to execute the PowerShell script. For a time being, just understand that execution policy is one of the mechanisms by which you can manage script execution. But here you must be having a question that how many types of execution policy we have. So to know about this, you need to run get execution policy -list. So this will list all those policies which you can apply over here. So we have remote signed. Let's look into the next exercise. So setting the execution policy to all scripts. So let's look into that. How do we can set up or set the execution policy? So to do that, what we need to do, we need to write set execution policy. And here you need to write the type of policy, that is unrestricted, and then -scope. Here we need to tell that current user, and then we can specify force. Now press enter. It is throwing some error and it is telling that set execution policy. Windows PowerShell updated your execution policy successfully, but the setting is overridden by policy defined at a more specific scope. So it is telling that they have already updated the execution policy. Let's look into that. But policy which is being defined, which doesn't allow, and it will revert back that restricted one. There is a typo error, can run this. So it haven't updated it. So this error I am getting because execution of the script policy is handled at domain level. So that's the reason it is not allowing me to change the policies at user level. But I will showcase the same example in our VM so that I can prove the point. My host machine is domain controlled, that is part of the enterprise network. So let's jump into the VM. So let's try here. Okay, try to run it. So it is remote signed. Now I will run set execution policy. Here we will set restricted -force. So see here, now we will run it. So here earlier it was remote signed and we have changed it to unrestricted, and it allows us to do that. But in our host machine, if you go back and if you will go here, you will find that it is not allowing us to do the changes. Why? Because it was having the policy at the domain level where I don't have any control. Anyway, the intent is clear that how to get and set the execution policy. So let's move further. Let's look into other exercise. So the next exercise is enabling scripting. So it is pretty much straightforward. So to run any of the script, you must have to open the PowerShell CLI or PowerShell ISE in administrator mode. So how to do that? Let's look into this example. So to do that, you need to come to the Windows Start button, and here you need to search for PowerShell and then right click and run as administrator. Then only it will allow us to run the scripting, else it will not run. So this exercise is all about running the PowerShell editor in administrator mode. So let's move further. The fifth exercise is checking the alias provider. One thing I wanted to tell you is that being a user, you don't feel you are working on a new kind of environment and you are learning new commands to work with PowerShell. Microsoft has provided commonly used command as an alias so that you can feel comfortable while using it, but the actual command which is running behind the scene is very different. So how do we come to know about what are those alias are? So to check those alias, exercise 5 will help us to understand those alias. So let's jump into the Windows PowerShell CLI. First I will demo that. So here if we will write dir, then dir is not the actual command, it is an alias of get-child item. So how do we check that? With the following command. So you need to write dir and alias enter. So this listed all those commands which is running as an alias, but behind the scene these are the command which is executing. For example, we have used dir, so here you will find that it is executing get child item. So instead of dir, if we will write get child item, then it will do the same thing. So this way you come to know that what are the alias existing. So here you will get all the list of the alias and the commands which is the alias is assigned for. So you will come to know about this thing. So this is pretty much handy command. You should remember that if you want to check any alias, so you can use this. This is simple exercise, but it is very important exercise. So now moving further, let's look into the other exercise. Now exercise 6, I will take this exercise in further course, not in this session but in the other session when I will introduce the modules details, so that it will make much sense on that time. Now proceeding further, we will look into the PowerShell commandlets. So what is PowerShell commandlets? So basically PowerShell commandlets is a lightweight command that is used in the Windows PowerShell environment. As I already demonstrated some of the PowerShell commandlets while performing the exercises in this session. But some of the point you must to know about the commandlet, that is commandlet is used to perform a single action. The name of the commandlet is based upon verb and noun separated by a dash. For example, get-execution policy, set-execution policy, get-child item. All these commandlets which we have used earlier. So this is based upon these syntax. So these points you should remember whenever you are working with commandlets. In the further session of this course, we will also look into how to create custom commandlets. We will also look into the naming convention of these commandlets using the same combination of verb dash noun. Now moving further, let's look into PowerShell ecosystem. So let's look into that. So basically PowerShell ecosystem can be designed in such a way that you can easily use to explore, to configure, to use the existing modules along with your new custom modules. You can use PowerShell to administrate remote machines, design the jobs, can easily work with providers. And one of the major benefit of PowerShell ecosystem is that it is not limited to the existing systems and the modules. You can design your own automation tool with the help of programming, which contains advanced functions, object orientation, object-based piping. Along with that, it has also the capability to automate or administer the cloud environment, whether it's Azure or whether it's AWS, Office 365. You can easily design the tools with the help of PowerShell. PowerShell has also the capability to maintain the state of the servers, whether it's on-premise server or whether it's a cloud-based server. You can easily manage those servers in an automated fashion with the help of desired state configuration. We will discuss further in the course. So on these notes, I am wrapping up the session. I hope you enjoyed the session. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye. Take care.